Just one question, Lord Evans, and it arises in relation to the failure of government to respond to the committee's report substantively. Would you support a power to compel government to respond, or an obligation on government to respond?
I certainly would support a duty on government to respond to our reports. Obviously, the critical thing as far as we are concerned is that the response should be a positive one, and the timeliness of it is secondary, although I think it's sometimes disappointing that the government takes so long to respond to some of the reports that we make.
Thank you. That's it then in terms of my questions. Do you have any questions for Lord
Yes, I do. Really reflecting upon your observations earlier this morning about the difference between rules, which are all very well, and the culture which is encouraged by the rules. And you observed really that part of the importance of accountability is to be supported by openness and honesty. And it made me wonder if the way that you create a system, an architecture, if you like, in which the culture follows what the rules would wish to explore. The rules themselves don't necessarily create a culture at all. They may just be words on a piece of paper. What about the need for clarity of expectation? Because if there is, if you're accountable to somebody or someone, and the public servant presumably is accountable to the public. Do the public have clarity of what is expected of their servants? In a sense, one of the ways that one might get the culture of observance of principles is that those to whom the accountable person is accountable know what's expected, because that itself will have a disciplinary effect upon the individual. I won't do this because everyone expects me not to do it.
I think it is important that there should be clarity as to what the accountability means, and also what members of the public can expect. In terms of, anybody in public service is ultimately accountable to the public. Obviously, in practical terms, that has to be mediated through other structures, whether that's accountability to Parliament or through employment mechanisms within a particular institution, a government department or whatever. But I think it is very important. Accountability as a general floating concept is not a particularly powerful tool. Accountability needs to mean accountability for particular things to a particular individual or institution. And therefore I agree with you that there needs to be clarity on that. And I think that the more, and I would also say that the media can in some cases play a very positive role on this, because one of the things that I've noticed in the time that I've been chair of this committee is that many of the public standards problems that have emerged because of a free and curious press or media identifying that there's something here that needs to be addressed. So I think it is right to recognise the importance of the media as well in terms of accountability. But I completely agree that accountability means something when it is specific accountability in regard to particular actions to a particular body representing the wider public.
So if one's looking to establish a culture of candour to support the principle that there should be candour, the public need to know that what is expected of those who are supposed to be candid. That would help to encourage those who are expected to be candid, would it?
I think if I understand what you're saying correctly, then I think I would agree with that. one of the reasons that I think the 7 principles of public life were articulated by Lord Nolan in 1995 was in order to articulate and make explicit what had previously been implicit. And I think, I don't think that Lord Nolan was suddenly introducing concepts to public life that were completely unfamiliar prior to 1995. It's just that they were unspoken before 1995, and by making them spoken, by making them explicit, it then makes them more accessible to the public as well as to those working for the public.
I mean, those in the public domain who are in employment, traditional employment as opposed to casual work, will be used to the increased codification in the workplace of what has been implicit in the owner business manager's powers previously. That articulation is, I suppose, part of a process which is exemplified in the public sphere by Nolan. Parliament, perhaps, it might be said, has yet to catch up with some of this.
I think if you look at the arrangements within Parliament, there has been quite a lot of progress, I would say, in the last 5 to 10 years on better arrangements for investigating where there have been shortfalls and for bringing those to light. So the creation of the role of the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, for instance, which was not a post that was there 25 years ago, means that there is now a mechanism for investigating the behaviour of MPs, which didn't previously exist. And if you look, for instance, at famously the Owen Paterson case, it was as a result of the investigation by the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, reporting then to the relevant committee of the House, that led to the revelation that there was a failure here.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. That's all that I have to ask.
Lord Evans, was there anything further that you would wish to add?
No, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, can I thank you, particularly for making the time available and for what is a most valuable insight into the way in which your committee fits within the tapestry of those who help to regulate standards in public life, a matter with which on which we have had quite a bit of evidence, one way or the other, or largely one way, in the course of this inquiry.
Thank you.
And thank you. You've been very helpful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we'll, if we take a break now to 10:30, and then we start
Yes.
with the expert evidence from the statistical group.
So 10:30.